Hey everyone, Retire on Dividends here. Making a video to talk about the YieldMax funds and when is a good time to buy. As you know, I made a similar video for the Defiance ETFs, and those are kind of, I'll say a little more straightforward, as for the most part, it seems like ex-dividend date could be the best opportunity, depending on what happens immediately after the ex-dividend date. But for YieldMax, it's a little different. But yeah, if you're interested in the Defiance video, I'll put it as a link on the description of this video. So let's get into the YieldMax video. Before I go through this, just so you know, I went through and I added the price of these underlying stocks every day from inception to the current day. And today is, I believe, December 17th for context, which is irrelevant, but at least, for TSLY and OARC, you actually have 1 full year's worth of data that we can cover. So I'm not going to cover every single fund, but I'll first cover, I think I have I'm going to do TSLY, OARC, APLY, NVIDIA, AMZ, cony, NEFLY, MSFO, AMD, PP, and SQUI. So, and I decided to do some Christmas colors, being in the season and all. But anyway, let's get to it. So OARC and TSLY, they both launched in the beginning. Their launch date was November 22nd. The close price is not picking up for that day, but whatever. We'll start on November 23rd. They were both around $20, okay? So I'm just going to scroll, and then on the right, obviously the price is on the left under the underlying name, and then on the right, it's the change, per day. So, and you could see how much it goes up and down. I'll stop when I see something drastic. So like November 30th, okay, they went up 5.4%. TSLY went up 5.4, OARC went up 5.98. So their calls must have been a little further out of the money. But brand new funds, they probably didn't know what to do, or they probably played it safe. And then, TSLY is kind of going down, as you can see, 5% down, 2% down, etc. 3% down, 2% down, 4% down. OARC's kind of going down too, and it's just going down because as mentioned in prior videos, and you guys probably know, the launch date of TSLY was horrible because TSLY was at a high, and the price just kind of tanked, for like a month or so. But I'll keep scrolling. 8% one day, 9.33%. I mean, it's horrible. It got down to the $13 range, then a little recovery, and then down 8%. But anyway, I'm scrolling slowly till we get to the ex-dividend date. So ex-dividend date I have highlighted in gray. So if you look, the payment was, I don't know if it was 7.5% exactly, but it was a decent amount, I'm sure, the first one, because it was across a month and a half or so. Same thing with OARC, but it doesn't look like their payment was as high. But obviously, yes. Is ex-dividend date the best date to buy these funds? By the way, I'm talking a little low because I have a baby in the back seat. I figured he's napping, I'll leave him alone, and I'll make a video at the same time. Why not? So yeah, in this example, is ex-dividend date the best time? Well, 1356, I would say it's a pretty good time, but it was even lower on prior days, right? And then it recovered. So it's really hard to tell. And then if you look right after the ex-dividend date, if we look at TSLY, for example, yeah, it's coming right back up. So in this example, if you bought on X date, you're sitting pretty. If you look at OARC, same thing. It went up from ex-dividend date. But then let's follow, right? Yeah, it continued to go up. And then it went down a little. And then it went up back to the 17 range. And look at that, ex-dividend date went down, back down to 1650 because of, the payment. OARC, same thing. They had a bigger payment that month. They went down 8.7%. So in this example, was ex-dividend date a good time to buy? I guess so, but if you look right, a few days after, TSLY's at 1634. and OARC is at like 1737, which is lower than ex-dividend date. So you can't really truly say ex-dividend date is always, a buying opportunity, because all of these, they track the underlying stock, right? And you don't know what's going to happen. You could buy on ex-dividend date, and the next day the underlying would tank, but so we'd have an even bigger discount. So it's really, really tough to say. But anyway, let's continue to look through some data. Let's go to the next ex-dividend date. Next one, okay, it dropped, they both dropped decent amounts down to 1542. But look at the day after ex-dividend date. Both of them dropped. TSLY dropped 5%. So if you waited one more day, you were better off. OARC dropped 7% in 2 days. So if you waited 2 days, you were better off. So, like I said, it's really, really hard to match or to time, that ex-dividend date will always work. I know, after ex-dividend date, right, they're building up for the next payment, right? They're selling calls, they're earning premium, and they're making money. So it should increase the NAV, but it's not the same as Defiance, because they have a synthetic position. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not working the same. It's not clear cut as Defiance, meaning like that one position, that sell put, that's it. Like everything is reliant on that and the premium that it makes from that. The YieldMax funds, they have a synthetic position, which is a buy call, sell put, and then they also have a sell call. So again, it's tough. All right, let's go to the next ex-dividend date. All right, so this is in April, 1486, and then OARC went down to 1551. So is it a good time to buy? Yes. For this month, it pretty much worked, because it's moving up a little, and then here we go, it dropped down to $12. And then aptly launched in April as well. So we'll now talk about that. I'm going to cover 3 at once, or at least I'll try. So let's go to the next ex-dividend date and see how all of these are doing. All right, so aptly must not have paid on that day because they went up 4.72%. TSLY and OARC barely went down, so that was OARC actually went up. So maybe aptly did pay, but it was either way, I guess that was a bullish day. Stock market went up. So in that example, ex-dividend date, not a good time to buy. Aptly, definitely not. OARC, definitely not. And TSLY, not so much. But, you scroll, you look for a big dip, right? Where's the big dip? Where's the big dip? Nothing. I don't see any on any of these. No, nothing. Okay, and now we're at the next ex-dividend date. Okay, TSLY dropped, OARC dropped, and aptly dropped. Not that drastic, but if you look at aptly, they dropped 2.25% down to 21.25, and then 3 days later they're back up to 21.87. So okay, you could say ex-dividend date was a good time to buy. OARC, you could say that too, and then TSLY, you could say that too. So for June, ex-dividend date would have paid off for you. And then, I don't see any drastic drops. Oh, here we go. TSLY dropped from, they had like down 4, up 1, down 2, down 5. Aptly, not so much. You can see the movement. Aptly's not as volatile, so the movement is not as insane. All right, next ex-dividend date, July. Here we go. Big payment for TSLY, big drop. OARC, not so much. Aptly, not so much. But good time to buy? Well, not really, because TSLY the next day dropped even further. So if you put all your money in ex-dividend date, you would have cried the next day because it went down even more. Same thing with aptly, it went down the next day. Well, let's keep going. I don't want to harp too much on, because this is a lot of data. Okay, next ex-dividend date was August. They all went down, but if you just look, okay, they stayed kind of flat, but then TSLY went down, 4 or 5 days later, and you could have got a better deal. You know, it was 15.58 on ex-dividend date, and then 5 days later, 14.91. So, you know, again, ex-dividend date is not always the best time to buy for these. I would say it's honestly irrelevant. Sure, it helps. Like when Coney had that massive payment recently, that helps. But you just look and, okay, here we go. Here's a good example when it is, right? It worked for this guy. This guy bought on 14.05 on September 8th. September 9th, guess what? It went up 4%. Nice recovery. But you're not going to, again, that recovery had nothing to do with when he bought it. The underlying just happened to go up. Next ex-dividend date, again, this is nothing. I haven't seen an example why ex-dividend date would be a good time to buy. Here we go, another example, November 8th. Okay, it dropped ex-dividend date for TSLY, great. Oh, next day, it dropped 4.94%. Same thing with OARC. Aptly's pretty steady. It's honestly a good investment. If only they had a little higher volatility. And here's the most recent, December 7th. They all dropped. OARC barely dropped because their dividend was crap. But next day, all three of them went up. But then the next day, they went down again. So, yeah. So the last date I have is December 15th. So I'm going to scroll up to, let's look at NVIDIA, AMZ, and Cony. You know what? I'm going to squeeze 4. NVIDIA, AMZ, Cony, and TSLY. So NVIDIA, what price did they start at? Like, look at that, 1991. So you can ask yourself too, should you buy at launch? For Cony, yes, you should have. For everyone else, maybe not. NVIDIA, possibly. They started at 1991 and look, jumped to 21, 20, 22, 23. Like, look at that. Insane. Ex-dividend date dropped 5.66%, but guess what? You'd still be up if you bought at the launch. Just keep going. Ex-dividend date down. Yeah, again, still not a deal. If you bought at launch, it's still, they're staying upper 20s. And then AMZ came along July 25th, and then they dropped a little. And then ex-dividend date, obviously they didn't pay that day, but look, AMZ went up 8.77% in one day. What kind of calls are they selling on AMZ that time? Wow. Look at NVIDIA, down 3%. But still, they're still in the lower 20s. Amazing. And then Cony and TSLY are now joining the party. Look at Cony's price at inception. Everyone's wishing they bought at that price. And then it dropped 18. Imagine. I think my average is actually 18. But anyway, NVIDIA, okay, here's the next ex-dividend date. NVIDIA dropped 5. But then the next day it dropped again. And then 2 more days, dropped again. AMZ, okay, they dropped, and then they went up the next day. So ex-dividend date really doesn't mean crap for these. My opinion is this. Buy in a little each day depending on the dip. You got to find the big dips. Like here we go, NVIDIA down 2.93% one day. Okay, you could have bought 10 that day. And the next day down another 2.5%. You could have bought that day. Cony, September 22nd, it dropped 4.46%. Buy 10 that day. And then Cony down another 2.38%. You could have bought 10 that day. But you take your turns. Who's dipping what day? And then obviously, yeah, you have ex-dividend date. If it's a massive drop, it's fine. But what if the underlying is going up on the same day? That drop of the X date is not going to necessarily give you some massive discount that you think. So, all right, let's move along. November 8th, pretty recent. Again, they all dropped, okay. And then they kind of recovered. AMZ dropped a little the next day, and they stayed pretty flat. So if you bought on X date for November, it's okay. And then December, NVIDIA, look at that. Man, they're at the 21 range. Amazing. AMZ 20, Cony 23. Nefly 17. But guys, remember Nefly? Let's go back. Nefly went down to what, 15? You remember this in October? I was adding, man. I kept adding, and I'm so happy I did. 15, I added it to 16, 7. Wait, oh my God, it jumped 15% in one day. I think I remember that actually. I think that was earnings day. But it just shows that if you buy dollar cost average on the right days, when they dip, you can do good. Here's some MSFO, AMD, PP, and SQUI. Sorry for the scrolling, but I gotta, SQUI's the last one, so this worked out. Okay. All right, so MSFO came around when? August 25th. They launched at $20. First ex-dividend date. Obviously, I don't think they paid anything. So they're still at 20, still at 20. AMD came, it started at 20. PP came, started at 20. Okay, here's the ex-dividend date. MSFO, if they paid, guess what? I'm sure they paid that day, but look, it was positive. So buying on ex-dividend date on that particular day was not useful because the underlying went up. Same thing with PP, although they probably didn't pay that day, but still. And AMD, everything's positive. That must have been a bullish day. So if ex-dividend day is a very bullish day for the underlying, you can just forget it. Not a good day to buy. AMD, okay, this ex-dividend day, AMD dropped 5.9%. Pretty big drop. So $19, pretty good. Look at MSFO, 21, staying solid. PP 18, SQUI 22. Wow. A lot of these funds, man. Look at SQUI 24. You need those drops, those big drops. Here's the most recent one. MSFO dropped 2%. Okay, you could buy, and it stayed pretty flat for the next 7 days or so. AMD was up on ex-dividend date. PP down, SQUI went way down, but that was a massive payment that SQUI had. And that's it. So, I don't know if this was useful necessarily, but the point I wanted to make for the question that people ask, when should you buy the YieldMax funds? The answer is not ex-dividend date. And hopefully at least what I showed you shows that. The best time to buy YieldMax funds is when the underlying goes down massively. And if it goes down massively in one day, that's your chance. Or if it goes massively multiple days, that's your chance. So my plan, especially within a week. So like they sell calls every Friday and they expire the next Friday. So if you can get one of yours to tank like so bad on a Monday and a Tuesday, like obnoxiously tank, that is the opportune time to buy. Because you know what? It always recovers. If not the full, it recovers a little. So if you can go down, and the reason I say Monday, Tuesday is because keep in mind that, all right, if they sell 5% out of the money and it goes down 5% on Monday, if you buy on that 5% dip, guess what? The calls are now 10% out of the money. So you have a possible of a 10% gain if the underlying went up. Not only recovered the 5% they went down, but went up an additional 5. You have that chance now. You have to keep in mind that the possible capital appreciation is very limited. It's very capped on some of these funds. Because if their implied volatility is not like, what cony is, 75%, then they have to go a little closer to the money, right? If they want to get you a decent premium, they sell really close to the money. So keep that into consideration. So I always say, keep an eye early in the week. Again, Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday. If it's just dropping massively, obnoxiously, one day after earnings or something, that's your chance. You don't have to put all your money in, just buy 10. That's what I do, right? I buy 10 a pop usually. I know I want to buy more, but I wait because if it drops obnoxiously that one day and I only buy 10, guess what? I have some for the next day if it drops another massive amount, right? Because sometimes it's not over, right? Just because it's one day doesn't mean it's not going to drop the next day and the next day and the next day. But yeah, that's how I do it. I hope that makes sense to you guys. But yeah, my opinion is no. Ex-dividend date for YieldMax, no. That's not how it works. Defiance, Yes. To an extent, yes. But YieldMax, no. It depends on the underlying. It depends when it goes down. A lot of factors depend. And this, hopefully, again, what I showed you guys here, clearly showed that. Because there could be massive drops. Again, Netflix, I think, is the best example. If we go back, when was that massive drop? I think they had like a terrible earnings. All right, so it launched 19, 16, 2, 3, jump 15 there. Yeah, sorry for making you guys dizzy, I know. Okay, there's the 15% recovery, but where's the drops before that? All right, so yeah, I guess it was over time. A little here, a little there, 2%, down 1%, down 1%, down 3%. Okay. Yeah, it was just over time. So that's why another reason to just dollar cost average, $10 here, 10 shares here, 10 shares there. And then guess what? You don't miss out on that 15% day. Like, what? One day? Like, wow. Anyway, so the bottom line is, when should you buy YieldMax funds? When it's cheap, when it's down massively, especially early in the week. Again, only because they sell covered calls on a weekly basis. If it drops massively on the Friday, guess what? Guess what's going to happen? They're going to, you're not going to have as much capital appreciation because they'll probably sell calls before it recovers. And the calls will be 5% from the new price, right? So I hope that makes sense. Again, if it doesn't, I'll just, obviously I can make more content on this and maybe a better layout. I thought showing the price history of some of these may give you a better visual. If you guys need this data, let me know. But it's all available. You can just Google it online. But either way, as always, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for fun and entertainment. But I hope it made sense. If not, ask me a question in the comments or join my Discord and ask me there. Typically available. If you liked it, please click like. That always helps, I think. That's what they say, right? Anyway, I'm out of here. Luckily, the baby's still sleeping, so I can stop this video and then upload it for release tomorrow, hopefully. All right, bye.